We've been studying toys for 10 years, so we know that toys influence children's learning and their behavior, and that it's important for teachers to be thoughtful about the kinds of toys they bring into their classrooms. What there's been less research on is how those toys should be brought into the classroom. When a new play material comes in, should a teacher introduce it formally? Should they have a discussion about it? And if so, what should that discussion look like?
This is called a puppet theater. So,
What's a puppet theater?
glad you asked.
As part of the Timpani Toys study, we gave a new toy to every classroom every week, and we recorded the children as they were playing with the toys, and then we analyzed the level of their play quality with those toys. We asked teachers to introduce the toy before they put it out during center time, but we didn't tell them how to introduce the toy. We just let them do whatever came naturally. And we began to notice that there were really significant differences in how teachers conducted that introduction.
So you can see that there's two different kinds of mallets. What do you notice is the same and what is
One
different?
that has like
And so it really got us wondering about the impact of those teacher introductions on children's play quality. So for the next 3 years, we looked at both what happens when teachers formally introduce a toy before it comes into the classroom, and also after it's been in the classroom for a little while.
What did you make?
pink.
Oh, you could make letters with them. Robert made
I'm gonna make a chain.
the letter P.
With most toys, children engaged in higher quality play when there was no discussion about the toy at all that was led by a teacher.
You go away. I don't. Hey, be nice.
But some toys can benefit from a full group discussion. For example, we saw that with some of the toys that had magnets in them, we saw higher quality play with the toy after there was a group discussion about the toy.
Oh, what do you notice?
They're connecting.
They are, you know why? Magnets on each side.
Mechanism. We can make a castle.
We could.
It may be that some children just needed a little bit of a demonstration about how those magnets worked, or to really play at the highest quality when they played with the toy. But that wasn't the case for most toys. Three-year-olds seemed to benefit from some kind of group discussion. Three-year-olds engaged in higher quality play after there was some kind of full group discussion about the toy. But we did not see that for 4- and 5-year-olds. They were less likely to have higher quality play after that kind of discussion. This suggests that some classrooms may benefit from a more differentiated approach so that younger children can get a little extra scaffolding and support if they need it. It may even be valuable to strategically pair an older child with a younger child when they're playing with a new toy, because the older child may model more elaborate, complex play. We saw some examples of these incredibly rich, elaborate discussions with children about toys.
What I made was a tower too.
Just
And
like that?
I made lots of triangles stacked together to make a big triangle.
That is so.
Those discussions resulted in a lot of great language use. They were beneficial in many ways, but they didn't translate to higher quality play. Anything over about 3 minutes for a toy discussion was not associated with higher quality play. So shorter was really better. There were some elements of group time discussions about toys that were associated with higher quality play. One of those was when the teacher asked open-ended questions during those group time discussions.
They're building blocks.
You think they're building blocks? What makes you say that? Why do you think they're
build-
building?
Open-ended questions seemed to help children engage in some play planning, so it got them to think about how they might play with the toy and then to verbalize it, and then of course they got to hear their peers' ideas about how they might play with the toy.
So Venus thinks they're building blocks and you can build a castle. Gus, what are your thoughts?
Another teacher behavior during group time discussions that was associated with higher quality play was when teachers acknowledged the suggestions that children made during those discussions.
So, if I was this creature,
Go down the water.
Caden thinks he might go in the water.
And then the third teacher behavior that was associated with higher quality play was when teachers described what they had observed children doing with the toy during free play.
I saw Galileo was a lot of times pretending it was a cell phone and talking on it.
What each of these behaviors has in common is that they all engage children in really meaningful ways. It's not a teacher just describing a toy or giving a demonstration of, here's how you play with it. But it is believing that children have the capacity to find their own ways to play.
Look, ready? Whoa, we knocked on your person.
I think the main takeaways from our research with toys is that, number one, teachers need to be thoughtful about what materials they're bringing into their classroom and what they hope that children are going to get out of them. But then teachers might consider just placing the new toy in the classroom and letting children explore it and discover it on their own, and then sitting back and observing what they do.
This is a big sword.
I think sometimes children can really surprise us. Sometimes they'll play with it in a way we never would have expected.
This is taller like you.
He wants to measure.
Okay, wait.
If children need a little bit of scaffolding, if they're struggling with a toy, or if they're just continuing to do the same thing over and over again, then a teacher can step in really quickly, provide a little bit of scaffolding, and then back off and let them play.
How will we get it to stay?
But it does make sense to pay closer attention to the younger children and see if they need more support than the older ones. If teachers do decide to have some kind of full group discussion about a toy, keep it short and make sure you are engaging children in a meaningful way. Don't just demonstrate how to do it, but really ask them for their ideas and acknowledge the suggestions that they have.